It seems you complained to Mom about the salary, didn't you? I'm tired of hearing your complaints. The store is finally getting on track, and even if you're not here, we can just hire a part-timer for the cashier. You're no longer needed. Let's get a divorce."
Suddenly, my husband Brian brought up the topic of divorce. So I said, "All right, I'll happily divorce you." And thus I agreed to divorce as he wished. Therefore, 3 days later, as soon as the signed divorce papers from my husband arrived, I also signed the divorce papers and submitted them. The divorce was officially finalized. I'm free now. The weight on my shoulders were lifted, and I felt as light as a feather. However, a few days later, I noticed an incredible number of missed calls on my phone. The calls were from my former mother-in-law, Lauren. "Come back home right now." Huh? My name is Hannah, and I'm 33 years old. When I was a child, my dream was to become a cake shop owner. My mother was very good at cooking, especially her sweets, which were professional level. The cakes were especially exquisite, and I would always beg my mother to make a cake for my birthday. Influenced by my mother, I started baking sweets myself. I would make sweets on my days off and bring them to school to share with my friends. My friends would all say, "This is so delicious. It's as good as the ones bought from stores." Encouraged by their words, I decided in my heart that I will definitely become a cake shop owner in the future. To achieve my dream, I began to study baking seriously. However, as I grew older, I started to wonder, can I really open a shop at this level? And felt anxious. This anxiety gradually grew inside me, weighing heavily upon me when it was time to decide my career path. As expected, I was completely defeated by this anxiety and decided to pursue a more realistic path. After graduating from college and getting a job in a company, I continued baking as a hobby. Although I couldn't fulfill my childhood dream, I thought it's more relaxing to keep it as a hobby. One day I met a man through a friend's introduction. His name was Ryan. His family owned a sweets shop, and he himself liked sweets. We hit it off talking about sweets and soon started dating. After 2 years of dating, we got married. I quit my job to help out at his family's sweets shop. My husband had an older sister, Kim, 5 years his senior, who also worked at the family's sweets shop. She was divorced with no children. My mother-in-law, Lauren, and Kim, both with short tempers, would yell at me for any small mistake I made at work. They probably never thought well of me to begin with. Especially after I started helping out at the family's shop, they would harass me almost every day. Lauren and Kim would get angry every time they saw me, saying, "You're not here to play around, are you? Do your job properly." And when I tried to do some chores, they would get angry again, saying, "Don't do unnecessary things." Thinking, then what should I do? But knowing that voicing, it would only worsen my situation. The last thing I wanted was more harassment from them. I convinced myself to just mechanically perform the only task I was given, the cashier duty. Lauren and Kim would warn me, "Don't do anything extra." However, it's not like they were seriously working all the time. Lauren and Kim would often go to the back to chat. "I'm going to take a break. Make sure you take care of the shop." Saying this, Lauren and Kim would disappear to the back of the shop, and they would not return to the shop for hours on end. Honestly, I found it easier to manage the shop by myself, but even I got angry when they slacked off for hours during business hours. "I'm standing in all this time during business hours. Give me a break too." I complained in my head, of course, too afraid to voice it out loud. Despite the situation, I had a dream. It was to make as many people as possible aware of my in-laws' sweets shop. Setting aside their personalities, I genuinely loved the sweets made by my in-laws. I believed that in terms of taste alone, our shop could compete with the well-known ones. Yet, if sales weren't increasing, there had to be some kind of problem. I wondered how I could contribute to the sales. I started learning about customer service and promotion from scratch, and even began managing the shop's social media on my own. I thought maybe if I worked hard enough, my in-laws would recognize me. I made various efforts with the sole desire to be recognized by my in-laws. Day after day, I struggled alone without relying on anyone. But as usual, Lauren and Kim would only get angry at me, saying, "Why are you doing all this on your own? Stop doing unnecessary things." Being constantly rejected on everything I did, I even started to feel defeated. Finally, I asked Brian for help, saying, "What do you think I should do now?" I had never complained to my husband before. Despite gathering all my courage to ask for help, his response was unexpected. Looking at me with a look of exasperation, he sighed and said,
"What you should do? Just don't do anything unnecessary like Mom says. Can't you even understand that?"
My desperate plea went unheard by my husband. At that moment, I realized there's not a single person who'd side with me in this house. Still, as long as I was a daughter-in-law in their house, I had to somehow overcome this situation. So, I motivated myself. I won't let anyone say that the store's sales dropped because I joined this family. That sentiment alone became my driving force. I did everything I could to increase the store's sales. It was a series of trial and error. Whenever I tried something new, Lauren and Kim would get angry, saying, "Don't do unnecessary things." It was a never-ending cycle. Since getting married, there hasn't been a single day of peace. Before I knew it, 10 years had passed since I got married. Then one day something happened that completely changed the situation. A famous celebrity, often seen on TV, placed a bulk order with us. I heard that the celebrity needed our sweets as gifts for a movie set he was shooting at. The family went crazy over the bulk order. Why would that celebrity know about our shop? Curious, I asked the man, who claimed to be his manager, "How do you know about our sweets?" He replied,
"I had received your shop's sweets from a fan before. I liked them so much that I searched online and found your shop's social media."
"Is that so? Thank you." I expressed my gratitude, and I thought social media paid off. Not everything I've been doing is in vain. I was so happy I could cry. The sudden bulk order. It wasn't the end of dreamlike events. Following the initial bulk order, more and more bulk orders began to come in. A famous veteran actress liked our sweets given as a gift on a TV show and mentioned our shop. The publicity far exceeded our expectations, and our shop's fame skyrocketed. Customers, even from far away, came to our shop, and sales surged dramatically. Our shop was thriving. There were days when customers didn't stop coming from when the shop opened to closing hours. I was on my feet almost all day, busy with customers. The hectic days continued. Of course, I didn't think the shop thrived solely because of my efforts. But starting the shop's social media did play a part in receiving the bulk orders. I hoped maybe this will make my in-laws recognize me a little. However, one day when I said, "The shop's sales are doing well," Kim glared at me and said, "What? Do you think the shop is thriving because of you?" No, I don't think that at all. I quickly denied it. Then, hearing our conversation, Lauren also glared at me and said, "You, who have done nothing, sure have the nerve to talk so big." Yes, my in-laws never acknowledged my efforts. No matter how much I tried and did my best for the shop, they didn't really recognize my efforts. There was absolutely no appreciation for me. This was reflected in my salary too. For the 10 years since I started helping at the in-laws' shop, I received a salary of $700. I worked almost every day from opening to closing hours except on regular holidays. The working hours might not differ much from a typical employee. If anything, the amount of work has increased since the shop became more prosperous. Yet the salary remains at $700 only. I wonder how much Lauren and Kim are getting paid. Thinking this, I decided to check the account books. The account books were always managed by Lauren, and I didn't know their contents. They were stored in a safe in the office. Stealing a moment away from Lauren's watchful eyes, I entered the office, opened the safe, and took out the account books. I nervously checked the contents. I was shocked by what I found in the books. My salary was $700, yet the two of them were receiving more than 3 times my salary. Setting aside my father-in-law and husband, who were handling different tasks, among the 3 of us working together, clearly only my salary was significantly lower. Honestly, I was confident that I worked more than 3 times harder than Lauren and Kim. What is this? I couldn't help but let out a voice. The next day, I confronted Lauren with the account book. This. What is this about? We're doing the same job, but clearly only my salary is significantly lower. Please explain this to me. For a moment, Lauren showed a surprised expression. However, the next moment, without showing any remorse, she said, "You, coming from outside, have the nerve to talk big like that? You're only working as a cash register. You should be thankful you're getting paid at all." "Mother is right," Kim chuckled, listening to the conversation beside us. I couldn't take it anymore and said, "I understand," then silently left the place and went back to my parents' house. That night, I received a call from Brian on my smartphone. Reluctantly, I answered, and Brian said,
I heard you complained to Mom about the salary. I'm tired of hearing your complaints. The shop is on track, and we can just hire a part-timer for the cash register if you're not here. You're no longer needed. Let's get a divorce.
I couldn't live with people like them anymore. Understood. I'll gladly divorce you. I said that and hung up the phone. 3 days after talking on the phone with my husband, a signed divorce paper from him arrived. I immediately signed the divorce papers and submitted them. The divorce was officially finalized. Now I'm free. The weight was lifted off my shoulders and I felt as light as a feather. But a few days later, I found an incessant number of missed calls on my phone. The calls were from Lauren. What does she want now? We're strangers now. I'll just ignore it. That's what I thought and decided to ignore her completely. Yet, she kept calling persistently, so I reluctantly decided to answer the phone. Hello? As soon as I answered, Lauren shouted, Hannah? Finally you picked up. I've called so many times, why didn't you answer? I don't care about that. I'm not your daughter-in-law anymore. We're just strangers. I was fed up. On the other side of the phone, Lauren was ranting away. I hardly remember what she was talking about because I was mostly tuning her out. Why did you quit the shop on your own? Or something like that. I felt like I was being blamed for various things. After shouting at me, Lauren said, That's why. Come back immediately. Do you understand? I was utterly dumbfounded and refused, saying, To begin with, it was you who suggested that Brian and I get divorced, right? You said that hiring a part-timer would suffice if I left the shop, and that I was no longer needed. After being told that much, there's no way I would just obediently come back. Don't ever call me again, I said firmly and hung up the phone. It seems that in just a few days after I returned to my parents' house, customers stopped visiting the shop almost entirely. Even the regular customers, upon finding out I wasn't there, said,
If she's not there, we're not coming to the shop anymore.
And indeed, they stopped coming. I think the sweets from my former in-laws' shop were first rate in terms of taste. But taste isn't everything. Customers liked my service and kept coming back. It seems I had become something like the face of my former in-law's shop without realizing it. I had announced my leaving the shop on social media. Since I was the one managing the social media account alone, naturally it stopped when I left. That might have had some impact as well. Lately, it seems Kim has been serving customers, but her service is not that good, and she always talks down to customers. The customers leave early because they get angry at her attitude. Looking at the shop's reviews online, indeed, there have been mostly bad reviews recently. The rating, which was 4.5 stars before, is now almost below 3.0 stars out of 5.0 stars. Such issues have led to a drastic drop in sales. It seemed they finally realized that the shop's prosperity was thanks to me. Afterward, I received texts almost daily from Brian begging,
I'm sorry. Please come back.
"It's too late for apologies now." Nothing they say can touch my heart anymore, especially not about returning to such a terribly treated workplace. A year later, I learned through acquaintances that my former in-law's sweet shop had closed down. Right before I left the shop, Lauren had purchased a large amount of ingredients for sweets. At that time, the shop was still thriving, so they must have thought that no matter how much they bought, it would quickly be used up. However, with my departure, their expectations were completely dashed. Without me, the shop's sales plummeted. Products were left unsold daily, and most of the purchased ingredients remained as stock. As a result, my former in-law family incurred a large debt and is now desperately working to pay it off. When I heard the shop had closed down, I honestly felt a bit sad. Of course, I have no intention of forgiving my former in-law family, nor do I regret the divorce in the slightest. But I truly loved the sweets from my former in-law's shop. To think there were so many fans besides me. It made me feel incredibly frustrated. The downfall was entirely the fault of my former in-law family. The Sweets were blameless. Afterward, I started working at a cake shop to fulfill my childhood dream. I'm learning how to make cakes from scratch, and my days are very fulfilling. The customer service skills I've developed are proving very useful, and more customers are coming to buy cakes just to chat with me. The promotion of the shop through social media has also been well received, and all the staff are happy with it. There's nothing more gratifying than knowing my efforts are contributing to the shop's sales. Now, receiving a salary that matches my efforts, I'm saving money with the goal of opening my own shop in the future.